Hi, Elaine. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Just for everybody watching, Elaine Gatlin is such an amazing woman. She holds a master's in French psychology. She specializes in children, and she's also a parenting coach here in Australia. And today she's agreed to talk to us about parenting burnout, which I think is such an important topic, something that I don't think many people actually realize is a real thing, and that is so integrally linked with using alcohol to self-medicate when we do have parental burnout. So I'm really excited to chat to you today about this, Helen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit, just start at the beginning, what is parenting burnout or parental burnout?
So parental burnout affects parents who are exposed to parental stress and lack the resources to deal with that stress. So the typical symptoms of parental burnout are the exhaustion, so parents feeling tired, but only from the parental role. So it's important to know it's very specific to the parental role. So they could be fine at work, but not when they are parents. The overload and the loss of pleasure of being a parent. And one that is also very important to know is a distanciation, emotional distanciation with the children. So parents will have more issues to say, I love you than before. So
Yes.
That's very hard for her parents to feel like this, and they can feel quite ashamed. And the last one that is extremely important is there has to be a contrast. So there has to be a time where you were giving everything to your family, putting your family first and all that kind of things. And now you don't do it anymore and you don't recognize yourself. You're a very different parent than what you were before. And that's really important to make this contrast, to have this contrast. Otherwise, it's not parental burnout. You have to actually burn in to be in burnout.
I see. That's so interesting because I was thinking like, I think all mums can sort of relate or resonate with feeling exhausted and overwhelmed at times, but then to get to that next step of actually being, I guess, like clinically burnt out is a slightly different set of symptoms and sort of diagnosis, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So what are the warning signs that someone has actually reached the point of parental burnout then?
So just to say about what you just said about clinically, actually parental burnout has only been studied since 2007, intensively studied since 2017 by two researchers in Belgium. So it's actually not yet clinically recognized.
Okay.
It takes a lot of time to have something recognized, and a lot of studies. But these two girls in Belgium, they are doing a lot of work to make this recognized, but it will take time, like everything else. But yes, as you say, all parents will feel exhausted and overwhelmed from their parental role, and also one day they just want to go away and go on holidays without their children, and that's normal. That's really hard to ask someone to be satisfied with their parental role for 7 days a week, 24 hours.
Yeah.
What makes a parent in parental burnout is the frequency of these symptoms.
Okay.
So is it once a week, once a day, once an hour, once a year? So that is what makes a difference. The great thing is the two researchers I was talking about before, they actually created a parental burnout assessment that you actually find online and on the burnout parental website. So if you are just burnout parental, it's in French and in English, the website, and you can also go on it, and there's a few informations on the symptoms and everything, and you can do the test online and check how in burnout you are or not. But what is very important to understand is actually the parental burnout is the entire story is it's a stress and you need the resources. So that's a balance. So parents deal with a lot of stress during their parenting journey, as we all know, but they will be fine if they have the resources to go with it. So you can be in very high stress, having 3 children with handicaps, but if you have the resources next to it, a husband who understands completely everything, a community who knows everything about it, you're fine. So to be a little more specific, So for example, if we take the example of a mom who has had a very stressful day with her own children, but in an hour she knows her husband is coming home and she's allowed to go and have the self-care that she needs to regulate her stress, she will be fine. But if the same mom is going into lockdown for 14 days and has no resources for 14 days, the stress will just build, no resources, she could be in burnout. So that's a really important part. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that. It's so interesting. And my heart just breaks even just listening to you sort of describe the situation where, you know, the mom doesn't have the support and that she needs, because I think a lot of us in this day and age, we find ourselves in these situations. Like I know myself, I'm living away from family. I'm from South Africa. I live in Australia. I've got no parent support except for my husband, you know. And I think a lot of people are like that, you know. You're French, living in Australia. There's so many people who are here without their family support. And, you know, these days we don't have the village to raise the child like we used to. We're quite individualistic in the way that we live our lives and sort of keep our stress to ourselves and don't ask for help. There's almost like some shame around, you know, not being able to do it all. Women are encouraged to sort of, you know, be superwoman and do everything on their own, you know, which is just not helpful for any of our mental health. And, you know, it's interesting that you say that, you know, this isn't a clinical diagnosis yet. But it doesn't mean that it's not real, you know. It's like, you know, and these researchers obviously have picked up that this is a condition that needs to be recognized so that we can support women and give a name to something that I think a lot of people there'll be a light bulb going, oh my God, is that what I have? You know, like I had no idea that was a real thing, you know?
Yes.
So that's exciting.
A lot of people, a name is already helping a lot of people. When you say the name, people are like, yes.
So tell us, in terms of, you know, if somebody is watching this and they go, oh my gosh, I do have parental burnout, they've done the assessment, what can they do to start to heal from this parental burnout and to start actually bringing that pleasure back in that you were talking about, which you start to lose when you are burnt out?
Yeah, so the first thing is recognizing it. But as you said, we need a really big shift in the way we think we are parenting. That is the way our culture has put pressure onto parents, and not only just the parent's identity, but the work identity, the wife, partner identity, all this, I should say husband too, because men can be in parental burnout. So all this identity, we have a huge pressure on us to be doing the best we can all the time. So we really need to change a lot of things that our culture has put onto us. So one of the things is, for example, parents don't need to be perfect. And we really need to take this word out of our vocabulary. And it has been shown a long time ago that a parent if he's good enough, it's what we need for a child. A perfect parent would not be good for a child. So already people think that, and they have this image of what they want to become, but it's just something to reach, something to have in the background, not something to absolutely go for. It's, I would like this, but if I have it, that's okay. Like, for example, I would like my children to do 2 activities a week of, I don't know, swimming. But if I can't, that's fine. That's doing 1 is good enough, and that's fine. And it's really important that parents don't feel the guilt anymore. It's okay. It's proven. So that's the big thing. And on this topic, social media are a real source of harm for parents, as they make them believe that everybody, as you say, are superheroes, and they forget that no one is perfect. It's just an image of 1 minute, not even 1 second. So if parents were like, oh, that really resonates with me, the first thing I would say is get rid of your social media and just go back onto you and just be happy with what you're doing. Like, really go back to, oh, I already did this week. That was quite good. Like, only 1 thing a week would be good enough. The second thing, and you touched about it too, it's parents need to understand that the way society has said that having one parent or two parents for children is not sustainable. It's absolutely not sustainable. This is not how children should be raised. They should be raised with a village, family, community. And we think also often about family. And actually, Australia is one of the most individualist countries in the world. Actually, in the study that I read, it's often the first. And I think it's with what you said, like a lot of people are moving away from their families, other countries. So we are quite thinking we are self-sustainable and we can do everything by ourselves. But that's not how we need to think. And we have to really work towards this change because it won't happen easily, but we have to work towards, okay, actually, we work better as a village than by myself. We work better having the children of my neighbor for 2 hours and they have my children later for 2 hours than doing it by myself. So this is a big, big thing. And it has been proven too that parental burnout is not as prevalent in countries who have a greater sense of community. So mostly countries in African continent, where the mom is very, like for example, in some countries for a month after pregnancy, after giving birth, sorry, the mom is doing nothing. No cooking, no anything, and the village is helping with everything. So this kind of country where they understand the importance of community and help, they get without burnout. There is actually a card on the same website I was saying who shows a difference of parental burnout depending on the country. So the countries. So yeah, it's a big one. And you were saying also about well-being, and I really would like to touch on that too, because parents should think about their own well-being before, and I say it again, before their children want. And oh my God, so many people just do what you do, laugh.
Yeah.
Great idea, but how do I do this? And it really needs to go back into us. And I often say to people, you have to think about the airplane. Like when the mask will go down for the oxygen, they say put it first on you and then on your children. And that's the same idea. If you don't care about your well-being, you will be fine for a week, 2 weeks, maybe a year. But in the long run, you will feel exhausted and overwhelmed and everything. So it is, and everybody says that we need to keep on saying it and keep on saying it and keep having parents thinking it's okay to first think about themselves and then their children. It will be really positive for the family. But which means that when you want to do a quality time with your child, it's not about the child. It's not about what the child wants. It's not just about that. It's about you and the child. What do you want to do together? What will make you both happy? And it's not just about educating a child or all these things that, again, it's a pressure on us. If it's just going to the mall or having a coffee and a baby chino or watching a movie, whatever it is, just fill your cup and your children's cup at the same time.
I love that.
Yeah. I should also say that I actually offer workshops where it has been proven that group workshops help a lot with the dynamic and changing people easier than individual session works, don't get me wrong, but a group workshop is really good. And in the workshops, we talk a lot about this balance that I was talking about. So we try to find the reason why the parents also burn in, and the group is here to help to find solution, because every single burnout is very different and everybody has their own story. So some are perfectionists, some are wishing to control everything, some are giving to others before themselves, as we were saying. So it's important that parents get educating on what makes them being in burnout to be able to change it. So yes, so workshops are very a good way to do it. Yes.
That makes sense. It's not like a one size fits all.
No.
Everybody will have their own sort of way of burning out and the things that they're doing which are making them burnt out. But I love everything that you've mentioned, and especially around the pressure on us, because I think that's where a lot of this stems from. We find ourselves pushing so hard and going beyond our resources in terms of doing things, even when we are exhausted and whatever, because we think it's, you know, book week at school and, you know, a dress up from the shop isn't good enough. We have to actually make something or whatever. And it's like, we don't need to go that far. As you said, I love the fact that you say it's sort of research based, that good enough is better than perfect. Like, that is such a relief. God, that is awesome. And the social media, you know, it's like, when it's one thing to say that, but then it's another thing to like believe that, you know, because when you're scrolling through your social media feed and you're just getting hit with everybody's picture perfect highlight reel of, you know, the amazing family times, we don't see enough reality on those things. So, you know, I'm a big fan of not being on social media much. Like, I'm on it for work, but besides that, I'm not really on it because I find it negative for my mental health. And I think that's one of the reasons why. And when you spoke about that oxygen mask analogy, and I laughed, it's like, I think, you know, we hear that so often as women and as mums, like, you need to take care of yourself first before the rest of the family. And we know that we should, but I think we find it so hard to actually do that, you know? And I don't know what it is, if it's this kind of societal conditioning that like the mom must be selfless and put herself last, or if it's this, I don't know, this competition that we need to have these, you know, this perfect family life or whatever. I don't know what it is, but it's so hard for us. And I know particularly for me, I keep hearing, got to look after yourself, got to look after yourself. But to actually put it into practice is a different story, you know?
Yes. So do you put in your agenda that your children have a time for themselves? Do they have a time to go to swimming lesson?
Yes.
Do you have a time for yourself to go?
Not at the moment. I used to before I had this, because I've just had my third. I don't know if I've told you, I've got a little girl, which is amazing. And before her, I had like time booked into my calendar for like, you know, going to gym or whatever. But since I've had her, and she's nearly 5 months old now, you know, I haven't got that back yet. And now, you know, I keep on making excuses because I'm still breastfeeding and it's hard to leave the house and blah, blah, blah. But like, it's just a priority thing, right? I just need to put it in my calendar.
That's right.
Make it a non-negotiable and just do it. You know?
Yes, so putting it in the calendar is the first thing to do, because otherwise stuff happens. But also I often hear parents saying, oh, I cannot come tonight because my children. And I'm like, try to change it. I understand sometimes there are stuff happening, but really trying to make sure that you are doing what you want to do and finding the resources to help yourself with your children. So
yes,
it's a big part of the workshop to find why you are not allowing yourself to this. And it's very depending on your personality and your own story. But yeah, it's really often in parental burnout, this idea that we need to be perfect moms.
And I think, you know, what I'm hearing is like, we're often holding ourselves back from giving ourselves what we need. And there may be sort of deeper, more complex reasons beneath that than what meets the eye, because maybe there's like self-worth issues there, like you don't feel like you're deserving of it or whatever. I don't know, you know, there's probably deeper things. But I guess the start is to recognize that you're in parental burnout, give yourself permission to actually look after yourself properly, and then put strategies in place to ensure that you do that, you know?
Yes. And it's not also, a lot of parents think, oh, but this person can do it, so I can do it. Or, oh, I did it 2 months ago, so I can still do it. No, there is time where you are okay. So it's just natural cycle. There is time where we are okay to give, and there is time where we need to receive. We just need to realize that we are in different cycles in different times. Yes. And it's not because this person at the moment is giving a lot that you have to give a lot. You can be, thank you for giving a lot, but my time of receiving. And it's important that we do this in our community, where sometimes our friend will take children for babysitting 5 times in a month, and you won't do anything. But in a year time, you can do it because it will be in your giving time. So it's important to just be okay and not being like, oh, she did it one, now I need to do it. It's just different time, different cycle, different moment in life.
Yeah, I love that. We actually had a lady who also did an interview for the Thrivalist community, and she's a menstrual cycle coach, and basically talking about getting in sync with your cycle, or the moon if you don't have a cycle, in terms of, you know, it's not always go, go, go. There's different times when it's, like you're saying, giving, and then there's receiving. So it's like rest and go, and, you know, different stages for different times, because we are cyclical beings. And if you look at nature, it's like you can't expect a crop to be producing all the time, you know, it needs time to, yeah, regenerate, right, and all those things. So yeah, I definitely agree. And Ellen, what would you say about kids, parents who have kids that have special needs? Is it just, you know, do the same things all apply, but like, you know, you need even more kind of resources, or is there anything different that you would say for those parents?
So parents with kids with special needs are more at risk than other parents for parental burnout. But this is not the only factor. So there has been huge studies in the last 3 years to prove which other factors would put parents more at risk. And so to give a few of them, just to understand, for parents to understand if they should be more careful. So I will say that first the example, and then I will go back to what I wanted to say. So parents with high education, parents who have done IVF, parents with an understanding of children's psychology, parents with children under 5 years old, young parents, so under 24 years old, old parents under 35 years old are more at risk, but also parents with big family, which makes sense, and it's really interesting, full-time parents. So, so there are a lot of things that are, you think, I wouldn't have think about that. And that's what makes parental burnout very interesting, because it has a lot of factors that create parental burnout, that normally these factors will be a positive in other mental health issues. So normally when you're highly educated, you don't have as much mental health issues, for example, but here it's different. So it's very fascinating to see that. And it's important to know it, just to make sure that, okay, I'm more at risk. One of the things is, for example, IVF, because when you went for IVF, you have really wishing and thought about this child and had the time to think about it. So how can you not be happy about it? How can you be upset about having a child? It's an awful feeling for a parent to feel like, oh my gosh, I spent 3 years trying to have a baby and now I don't want it anymore. But that's a normal moment for a parent, and it's important that I say it.
Yes.
Normal at one point to think, oh my gosh, my life was better before. It is normal. It is okay to think that. And if you have IVF and you don't express it, it's a real stress on you. And then you will go into, expressing it will be a resource. And if you don't use this resource, it will be hard on your mental health. So yes, so that's really important to know that.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. So my advice, actually, as you were asking, to these parents would just be to get extremely educated on their own functioning and the factors that they have and how much of these factors do they have. And that's something that we talk about in the workshop, so parents can understand. But again, factors, stress, all of that is okay if you have the resources. So the important part is to look for resources more if you have more at risk. And most importantly, to learn when to see the first sign of stress. So that's really important, because if you go with a graph of stress going up, 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 because you're more and more stressed, it is much easier to regulate stress in your body, which is done by the cortisol hormone, when it's at the beginning than when it's at the end. When it's at the end and you have to regulate all that cortisol hormones, it's very difficult on your body than at the beginning. So learning your first sign of stress is very important. But if you know also exactly the factors that make you stress, you will be able to find the resources that are adequately answering to these factors. So for example, if it was a handicapped child, find around you the community that can help you with that, and parents that have the same issues, because they will have strategies that you can use for yourself. So that's where it is all working better. Yeah.
So incredibly fascinating. And, you know, I think that what you said earlier about being in a workshop situation where you have other parents who are also experiencing parental burnout, I can imagine how healing that would be, because first of all, they don't feel alone anymore. And second of all, you know, they can really workshop strategies to support and benefit from each other's experiences and ideas and all that kind of thing. And it's so similar, like what you're doing and what I'm and myself and Lucy are doing here at Thrivalist. You know, we're bringing women together who've been struggling with alcohol. You're bringing parents together who've been struggling with parental burnout. And when you spoke about the factors that increase the sort of vulnerability to experiencing parental burnout, and the fact that those factors don't necessarily mean that you will get parental burnout, it just means that you're at risk of it. But if you have like mitigating factors, like all the resources in place, you can actually be okay. And it's so similar when it comes to developing an addiction, you know, because you can have all these vulnerabilities, like a predisposition from family genetics, or, you know, from having childhood trauma, or whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that you will get addicted. It's just if you don't have adequate supports in place to manage that stuff, it can turn, you know, you can turn to alcohol to self-medicate those things, and then, you know, it ends up being an addiction. So it's so similar. I'm just seeing the parallels between these two things. Just fascinating to me. So tell me, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? You sound like you've got a wealth of knowledge here.
If it's okay, we just touch on what you just said about addiction.
Yes.
I think it is really important to understand that alcoholism can be a symptom of parental burnout. So I hope it makes sense. Like that. So it will mean that parental burnout was there, and then alcoholism is appearing because of parental burnout. Studies have shown that burnout increases the risk of alcohol dependency by 80%. So
wow.
It's not a small amount. It's not something. And the reason is due to the inaccurate, and again, I will say it again, inaccurate, to not forget this word, even with my French accent, inaccurate sensation that alcohol helps stress. And I'm sure you go through it for your course. It works on the first few times. You go stress, and then you have alcohol and you go down. But the day after, your brain goes, oh, I had a really big thing happening here last night, so I'm going to go lower again. So that's why we get a depressive feeling from alcohol. So you cannot know. And then you go up again because your brain managed it, but then you get stressed again and you use it. But this time it's a little lower because it doesn't work as well. So the graph will go like this, and slowly and slowly and slowly, and then you get into depression. And that's a dysfunctional way to regulate stress. But it is really important to understand that, because if the alcoholism is a symptom of parental burnout, we need to look into alcoholism and burnout at the same time. So, because otherwise you will just care about alcoholism and parental burnout will still be there, so stress will still be there. And so you will just parents will just find another dysfunctional way to regulate their stress. So parents really need to find a new way to deal with the stress. So that really has to be looked at the same time.
And so, Ellen, tell us, where can we find out more about you? What's your website or social media or emails? Just tell us everything.
So I have a website. It's not huge, but people can find me. It's called Ellen Gatland Family Coach. There's not a lot on it, and not a lot about parental burnout yet. And so you can just contact me on this website, and I can give you like the next stage of the workshops, or do an individual session if it's something that you feel more comfortable about. One of the big parts, as I say, is people are ashamed of being in parental burnout. So if it is something that, because of that, you don't want to be in a group, that's that's fine. We can begin to work together as individual in individual sessions. Sorry. And actually today, due to this interview, I just opened a Facebook group for parental burnout because I realized it's so little talk that actually there's no group on the internet, on Facebook.
Amazing.
So that just began. So that's really easy because there is only two, and the two are mine. It's one for professional and one for everybody. So if you write parental burnout on Facebook, you should be able to find it. If you don't find it, just give me again an email on my website and I can send the link to you. But at the moment, it should be very easy to find it. Yeah.
I feel like you need to do an online course like we've done for parental burnout and get a community going in the same way that we have, because it's so powerful to put all these people together. I mean, you'll see it with the Facebook group when you get going, but this is like the perfect content for a course and a group.
Yes, yes. And the session it's quite intense. Like it's like it's 8 weeks.
Yes.
So yes, definitely. And Australia is so big. You
exactly.
need a course.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much. I'll put those links on your profile when we put it on the website so that people can find you. But this has been so amazing, Elaine. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me today. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.